Welcome to the Red Pill Nation Hangout number 449. I am your host and I believe relatively sane host Naruki5, and this is gonna be an interesting one. Glad And this is the first time I am actually live streaming on multiple platforms. Currently, I am at BitChute, Odyssey, Kick, and Twitch. I haven't worked out the situation yet with Twitter. I really don't give a damn about Facebook. MGTOW TV is also another one that I am Brady on. I will eventually get those ones worked out. I may have to actually pay up, in which case I may have to wait. I will make an effort to include the Twitch and Kick links down below in the low bar here at some point in the next day or two. But yeah, I'm glad the one person who is actually currently listening on Rumble is actually still listening. There's one person who told me he had to go to take care of something before he had to start. Just one quick thing before we actually get into the show proper. I just realized I forgot to do something. I'll be back in about 20 seconds. Okay, at some point in the next couple of hours here, I'm going to have to step aside and make myself some tea, maybe even have a little bit of breakfast, because I literally got up from night shift to take care of this. So the topics for today, and this is going to be a very interesting little bit here. But before I get into the topics, where am I located? In order of size of following: BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey, MGTOW TV, Brighteon, and YouTube. Mine's Gab, MeWe, Getter, TLB Talks. Those are the social platforms I'm on. Yes, I am now officially also on Kick and Twitch. I don't see anybody on either of those two platforms actually watching me at the moment, which is okay, because I mean, obviously, this is my very first show, so I'm not expecting that there's going to be a lot of people watching at this point. So, running total, I am currently at 865. If you conclude the totals from, if you include the running totals from my new from my two new channels, which well Kick and Twitch I've had for a while, I just didn't use them. I didn't use them very much, so it wasn't like I didn't, well, for one, I hadn't really been live streaming. I had been going via Skype for a while, and I didn't actually get into live streaming again until about, say, 20 episodes ago. 20 episodes ago. I am currently at 865 subs. Now, with a little bit of luck this week, I will actually have surpassed the total number of subs I had back when somebody managed to get my old YouTube account shut down. It was at 869 when it crashed. I am currently at, with the combined totals that I currently have on all of my platforms, I'm not sure how many followers I have currently at both Kick and Twitch as of right now. So I'm going to have those at 0, but I'm currently at 865 followers. So yeah, Oh, look, I actually do have somebody following me on Twitch. Welcome to the one listener on Twitch. So yeah, that's the site news. Now, what are the topics this week? And yeah, I'm just gonna go over here. And of course, the window doesn't come up. Oh, wait, no, there it is. Okay, let me just get over to my main window here. The topics for today, and yeah. By the way, this is also. I mean, normally I do this show on Sunday. Technical issues really kind of prevented me from uh doing a lot yesterday. But however, I was able to get the multi-stream fixed, which basically turned out to be in a whole episode. So as of right now, I am the only person on doing the show. Somebody might be joining me in a few minutes, but we don't know for sure at this point. But as of right now, I am currently the only person doing the show. So the topics for today, now that they finally come up: one, they're not going to release the Epstein files. Two, Superman movie is turning woke. That's with a question mark. James Gunn cannot help himself. Three, CEO of Twitter's X, Linda Yaccarino, quits after Grok incident. Four, Antifa terrorist arrest for attack on ICE facility in Texas. Five, Trump moves to ban China buying more farmland, citing security issues. And six, RCMP officer links traditional values to extremism. She did this during an interview. She may have misspoke, but you know what? Like that's you know, there's been a lot of that going around lately. Uh, yeah, there's not really a whole lot else to get into. So without any further ado, I am, like I said, maybe I might get somebody jumping in at some point. Maybe I won't. I'm not going to really worry about it all that much. Let's just get into the show with topic number one. And yeah, this one I really haven't really I can remember the because I was in Calgary. I did this show from Rearson's Kitchen. And when we covered this topic back in 2019, uh we ended up going like almost an hour because I mean the way the way I structured the show then is pretty similar to how I structure it now. We have five, six, seven topics. We go over the topics one at a time, and what we do is we go till we finish talking, and we ended up going almost. I mean, I really could have made Epstein a topic all by itself. Like that's how large it was. We probably went on about that topic for probably I think it was like 48 minutes. And it was one of those 3 hour ones, which is not uncommon with this show. But yeah, that was one of those 3 hour episodes. The the whole thing about it is that I mean Epstein is just one, especially in light of what happened with P Diddy. That's the big issue. Is what it's not just the fact that it happened with P. It's also what happened. Yeah, it is. It's what happened with P Diddy and the fact that it was a split verdict, and of course he's going to get sentenced probably next week, I'm guessing, or at some point. He is either. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he was simply sentenced to time served. I suspect they're gonna do something else to him. But one of the things that happened is that Epstein himself, if you had been around with the alt communities while this was going on, is that the whole Epstein issue, just it was it had what had been doing with what he had been doing had been floating around in the alt media sphere for a very very long time. So when he actually finally got arrested, it was like, oh yeah, that's no surprise. There are then of course it was like everybody's like going, yeah, he's gonna end up getting suicided, and of course he did end up getting suicided in jail. And there's just like 9/11, which by the way is one of the reasons why uh the situation with him is kind of hard to just dismiss out of hand, is the fact that both guards fell asleep. Okay, I've worked security myself, and yeah, there are occasionally nights where you, for whatever, especially if you work, on night shift, where you work the night shift and hey, Roger. Hi, Roger. I don't know whether you're ready to introduce yourself yet, but yeah, there.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So yeah, I'll just finish my section off about Epstein, and then I'll let you have a go at it. So yeah, I mean, on night shift, yeah, occasionally what happens is I got really tired. I remember there was one very specific time, way 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 back, um, because I had basically been out all day for the entire weekend on very little sleep, and then I had to come into a shift Sunday night, and I got to work and I was dead tired when I got into work, and I did my initial patrols and I did my initial stuff, and I reported in once. And then what ended up happening is that I can remember this quite clearly. I went, yeah, gee, I'm feeling a little heavy. And the next thing I know, everything just went black. And I woke up like literally 8 hours later, sitting in the same chair, and nobody had called, nobody had visited, nobody had done. Well, keep in mind, the company was in transition at that point. So I got kind of lucky. But I mean, the issue with Jeffrey Epstein, and this is something that comes up quite frequently with him, is the fact that there's just so many coincidental failures in the security around him for it to have just been a mere coincidence. And, um, you know, that is the reason why. And also, just, I mean, his background, which also came out after all of this got revealed, it was like, yeah, man, it's like he wasn't suicided. Now, I I don't know what happened with Pam Bondi after she took over as Attorney General, but they made this noise about releasing the Epstein files, and they kind of sort of did, but all they really did is they released it all. They took a binder, gave it to a bunch of alt media personalities, and none of the information that was in there was new or didn't name anybody. It didn't specifically call anybody out. It was, there was really nothing there, and people got a little annoyed, and they started putting pressure. They said they've been putting pressure. Dan Bongino went in and took a look, and the evidence, when he came back, he was on his show. He came in and said, yeah, no, he committed suicide. The stuff that I saw, says he committed suicide. Now, that doesn't necessarily rule out the fact that Epstein didn't take his life. You know, he could have been suicided. Uh, he could have been allowed to commit suicide. That's a very real possibility with him. I don't. Again, I'm not. I don't get into. Although I make jokes about tinfoil hats are us and so on and so forth. I don't get into a lot of the deeper conspiratorial stuff about Epstein. I don't think he's still alive. I do think that he was, at the very least, allowed to commit suicide. There's a lot of inconsistencies with the autopsy around him as well. There's been calls for Pam Bondi to do this, and of course, you know, the way that they're trying to downplay this, and the way Trump was like, so Jesus, Trump had almost that impatient, like, Jesus Christ, just let it fucking go, right? Attitude towards Epstein did not do anything to dissuade anybody from getting more curious about it. I don't think this is a Pam Bondi should resign kind of issue. This is me speculating here, and my speculation tells me that what is going on here is that they uncovered some stuff. It might not necessarily link up to the president, but the apple cart was really severely overturned when this occurred, and names have been revealed that I don't think, dare I say it, like, the whole government establishment could actually be complete, not just the Democrats, but the Republicans as well. The whole political establishment could be thrown completely out of whack, and there'd be more than a few people going to jail. There'd be more than a little bit of outrage. You have to keep in mind too, right? Like, there are people that, if this is, and again, I'm just in the realm of speculation here. If people found out about this, there's people who are like, that will deny. It's going to be very hard for that crowd to deny when they're seeing dozens, maybe even 100, maybe even a couple hundred people being sent to jail over this. And the thing about it, and the number of government institutions and corporations, Hollywood, I suspect, would also get really severely hit with this. The amount of the number of things that would happen, it has the potential to destabilize the current office. Now, the way it maybe I don't think first of all, man, they've tried really, really desperately to, they've tried really desperately to link Trump to Epstein. No, I don't think Trump was involved. Trump did ride on Epstein's plane a couple of times, but it was never to the island. It was to his residence in Florida and back to New York. He booted Epstein out of his his facility, out of his club at one point. So you've also got that. And also, and this is something that I've noticed about Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein liked to be photographed with famous people. And you have a photo of Ghislaine Maxwell with Elon Musk. Epstein liked to have photos of himself with rich and powerful people. All of these photos of Trump, like the couple of photos that you guys consistently see of him posing on with Trump, is not a smoking gun. if he was part of in particular, since Epstein was part of the New York crowd, the elite New York crowd, as was Trump. Yeah, so they did rub elbows, especially since, I mean, a lot of people seem to forget about this, and I'm not saying this is the reason why he's guilty, but I mean, Epstein is Jewish, and I mean, if you're going to do business in New York at the upper level, you have to deal with that element of society. You know, so that was Trump especially in the business that Trump was in when he was when he was working in New York. So Trump and Epstein rubbing elbows was almost unavoidable. Here's another one, and when we get to the Canada thing, I'm going to have to point this out. Trump and Mark Carney probably also rubbed elbows at one point. Although, again, oh, by the way, Carney is also linked to Epstein, more by Ghislaine Maxwell than by Epstein himself. So yeah, you've got a long series of coincidental associations, and it's not just in the United States; it's in Canada. And here's a really curious one that I found out about just a couple of months ago. The last photo of JonBenet Ramsey, when she was alive, there is a woman who looks very. I mean, again, it's kind of hard to tell because her face is partially blocked, and you know. Don't specifically know how old Ghislaine Maxwell would have been back at the time that JonBenet Ramsey disappeared, but there's a woman in the background of the last known photo of JonBenet Ramsey being alive, and this woman looks a lot like Ghislaine Maxwell. Just saying. So yeah, the rabbit hole for Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell runs really deep and runs really far. And, I think once they started taking a look at it, given the current situation in the U.S., I think the tactical decision was, no, we can't release this. It will create too much instability and inviability. Dare I say it, man? It almost looks as though, it might have actually, this could have actually, I mean, I'm not, this could have actually sparked enough to cause governments to fall, administrations to fall. Not necessarily Trump's, but I mean, other governments in the West. You have the situation with the royals and Prince Andrew. You have at least one former prime minister of Britain linked up with this ring, and another former prime minister who I've heard enough over the years to suggest that he was probably a pedophile himself. You've got stuff in France. You've got, and that's just the government official. That doesn't include all of the private institutions that have links to him. Musk is not linked up, strangely enough. But I mean, other than that, it's this rabbit hole, and I also suspect they may have curated the content of what they showed Bongino. But yeah, is this a Pam Bondi must resign issue? No, I think this runs a little higher. And I believe this is kind of what I believe. I think they found some stuff in there that could be potentially politically and culturally destabilizing, not just to the United States, but to various Western regimes. And yeah, truth is truth and justice is justice. And these people, they like, I mean, I'm very convinced too that there's like extensive pedophile rings, particularly working out in Hollywood right now, because the way they tried to delegitimize Sound of Freedom just was like almost disgusting. But with that out of the way, I am going to let Roger Hansen introduce himself and let him talk for a while while I go grab a cup of tea myself, and Roger Hansen can wax poetically about what's going on. Roger?
Yeah, sorry, I had to figure out where all my mics and everything was to unmute. I was checking it out, man, and it was like, a lot of people say that there's only one photograph that Donald Trump had with Epstein, and that's not the case. Like, he's had well over 50 photos that were taken with him and Trump together since the 90s, and this was before AI came around. So that's the one thing I think that a lot of people are taking focus off because they don't want to believe that it's true that Donald Trump could have possibly been involved in all of that, And the truth of the matter is they were best friends all the way through freaking since they were younger, since 97. As a matter of fact, the most infamous one of Donald Trump with Epstein is when they were in Mar-a-Lago back in 1997 when he was standing with his now wife, but at the time it was his girlfriend, and they were hanging out with Epstein and stuff. That was all the way back in 1997. Then there's other photos that came up too. He was actually with him at I believe it was freaking Victoria's Secret Angels. They got a infamous video, or not video, but a photo there where he was he had a Ingrid Signhaven, or however you say her name. She was sitting with him, or she was hanging on him, and you could see Epstein standing behind him. And I don't know if it was before or after the show or not, but there they are again in the same photo, and that was back in 97 as well. And it, like I said, there's tons of photos that have him and Epstein together. They were thick as thieves. Now, my personal take on this is, at first, whenever this stuff was going on, I just kind of had well, maybe, you know what I mean? That's what I said to myself. Maybe he was involved, maybe he wasn't. I didn't really think much of it. But then the thing that really got me was what recently just happened. You can try to use this woman as a fall guy, but the truth of the matter is there are a lot of people who wanted freaking actual truth coming out of this situation, and Donald Trump and a lot of other people who are supposedly in the Department of Justice turned a blind eye while this woman said that there was no files of a list of people who were involved with Epstein. And after that was said, Donald Trump comes out and says that she did wonderful work, and to me, right there, that tells me he freaking was okay with the fact that she came out and said this bullshit, even though he turned around and said, "Oh yeah, we're going to get down to what actually took place." And the fact that they're trying to say that there's no list whatsoever tells me that he's covering shit up. I personally believe that he is on that list. I believe Kushner is on that list as well. If you take a look at Kushner's dad, Charles Kushner, who, by the way, Kushner, when I refer to him, that's Donald Trump's son-in-law, and his father, Charles Kushner, was actually sent to prison back in the early 2000s because he was actually setting his own brother-in-law up to freaking blackmail him. And his brother-in-law ended up turning state's evidence, I believe, on him. And he went in and pled guilty to all those charges, as well as charges of illegal um, financial dealings and things of that nature. And my personal take on this is the fact, like with this stuff with Netanyahu and the stuff that's taking place over in Israel, is the fact that Donald Trump is on that list. These people know he's on that list, and he's getting blackmailed. You do this, or we're bringing this information out. And because the thing is, it's like, for me personally, I feel that in this term with Donald Trump, he's actually showing his true colors. You know, he sat and he talked all the bullshit, and he said everything that everybody wanted to hear. But in the end, you know what he did? He told on himself. The stuff that's happening right now and the things previously all show what Donald Trump is about. Um, I get a kick out of them too. You know what I'm saying? We were talking about it on my show about how these woke are all big on, you know, identity politics. And the moment he gets into office, what does he do? He starts using identity politics. You know what I mean? Them dirty freaking African or South Americans coming into our freaking country and raping our women. And, you know, that's all it's been from get go. You know what I mean? That's all he's pushing. He's pushing identity politics, just like the freaking wokes did, except for in the other direction. And then he turned around and he says, "Oh, I'm against war. I'm against war." And what does he do? He sends freaking missiles to freaking attack Iran. You know, um, and he does that because he's basically freaking being, in my opinion, he's being blackmailed by Putin or Netanyahu. You know what I mean? Um, and that's what it all comes down to with this thing with Epstein. That's the only reason why I could understand why that man would freaking would endorse this bullshit and just look away from it with a blind eye, is because his name's on that list, just like a lot of other powerful men's names are on that list. And if he says anything, or if he goes against anything, he's gonna get into a load of shit. This was his this was his chance to get rid of that. You know what I mean? And he took it. Um, so that's really my whole take on this with Epstein and Donald Trump. Um, I believe there's a lot more involved, and I believe somebody uh, said on Censorship Sucks last night that one of the women who were involved in all of that said that she's willing to come out now and tell her story, because before she didn't want to. She was involved in the whole Epstein thing. But since Donald Trump pulled his shit and basically stabbed everybody in the back, I guess she says she's going to come out and tell everybody what's going on with her. But yeah, this whole thing, to be honest with you, is something that just literally pissed me off. It really did. You know, it's just one more thing I can add to a list about Donald Trump that that shows me exactly what kind of a person he is. Um, but it's good that this happened too. I also said this because I'm noticing that a lot of these Trump worshippers are actually saying stopping and they're saying, "Hold on, dude, something's not right here." You know what I mean? Because Donald Trump was the same guy who freaking started the birther movement. He's the same guy who freaking ran around talking a lot of conspiracy, and now all of a sudden, you know what I mean? He does this with the Epstein case, you know, and I find that pretty odd, you know. And there's a lot of people that are involved in this too, besides him. So I hope I talked enough to where Naroki could come back on here. You there yet,
Yeah,
Naroki?
I'm back. I'm back. Actually, I'm even done the tea. That's how long you talked.
Good.
Yep. So my personal take on this is that while Trump maybe didn't indulge with Epstein, I suspect that Trump was one of those people who knew and looked the other way, and that there's the people who are directly associated with Epstein, like Bill Clinton, for instance. You know, Bill Clinton was definitely involved with Epstein, and then you get that one step removed. You know, you have the people who had an inkling or a suspicion, and this is what happens. This is what happens with a lot of people who later on prove to be like mass murderers or pedophiles or whatever. Right? There's individuals around them that knew or suspected, had very strong suspicions about what Epstein was doing, and either didn't care, didn't have the time to look, or they either didn't look or didn't bother, didn't want. They either didn't want to look, didn't have time to look, or didn't care. Right? I suspect that Trump is in that group of individuals. That's my take on it. I don't think he necessarily like flew out to the island or engaged in any of that stuff, because like I mean, if that had been the case, somebody would have said, yes, I saw Trump at these events, you know. And that's that particular, and keep in mind it's been 6 years now, and nothing, no smoking gun in that particular area has come out. But did Trump know what Epstein was about and either was too busy or just didn't care? Yeah, I can definitely see that happening with him. And there's probably that next ring out, the ones who knew or suspected or had very strong suspicions and didn't say anything, or and did business with him knowing what he was like anyway. I suspect that group is significantly large. To give you an example of somebody who I think probably, and this is not Epstein, this is Harvey Weinstein, somebody who probably knew what Weinstein was about and chose to do business with Weinstein anyway, is the association between Oprah and Weinstein. You know, Weinstein was the reason why Oprah Winfrey, because there was a big, because if you remember this, back at one point between 2020 and 2024, there was a big push to have Oprah Winfrey, of all people, run for president. And Oprah doesn't want to do it. And part of that reason is that, and it's like, you go, if for instance, at the time when I did this, I went over and I looked at the number of photos of Oprah with Weinstein. And on Google Photos, there were two full like pages of that. And I mean, there was enough association that, at the absolute best, um, you know, she knew what he was about and continued to do business with him anyway. Like Oprah definitely knew what Weinstein was doing. And based upon some of the other stuff that's come out about Oprah Winfrey over the years, it wouldn't surprise me if Oprah Winfrey was actually supplying Epstein with bodies. That's just me. That's just me speculating at this point. Uh, yeah. That's the category I put Trump into. Keep in mind that there are very limited photos of Trump. Again, I gotta have to point this out about Epstein. Epstein liked to be photographed with rich and powerful people, right? Like he liked having his photos with them. He liked putting them up on his wall and on his table and what I think he liked to be a bit. He was a bit of a show off that way. So photos with him, with Trump, or someone, or a photo with Ghislaine Maxwell, with with Elon Musk at a gathering are not smoking gun proof, because I mean a lot of people probably wanted a photo with one of those two individuals. Do I think that he do I think when he started looking, do I think they actually started seeing it was like, oh man, like yeah, fuck, we kicked a hornet's nest here. Yeah, I think they did. I think they definitely noticed that they had kicked a hornet's nest here, and they decided that it's like, no. Keep in mind too, they are. Although I don't think they're going quite far enough. I don't think Trump is going quite far enough. This current administration is doing some much needed house cleaning with the U.S. government. Their USAID definitely needed to be shut down. USAID was a notoriously bad institution that I actually read about back in the early 2000s about how bad it was, and that was, if it was bad then, I don't even want to think about what it's like now. Um, you know, the restructuring of where the U.S. gets its revenue, yeah, I think that was also probably a very necessary move, because it's the fractional reserve banking system has probably got less than a decade left. Too many politicians, in particular, what's happened up here in Canada. Strange. It's kind of weird considering. Oh, by the way, I find it rather strange that, considering how creepy Justin Trudeau was, that there were never any links between Justin Trudeau and Epstein. That I find that rather curious, because man, there's a lot of creepy shit that got said about Justin Trudeau. Um, the uh, the whole thing with that is that, what's happened is that too many politicians, in particular what was going on during COVID, is that the government basically cranked up the money printing machine and had the money machine go brrr, to the point where they caused, in particular in Canada, man, uh, wages and living expenses and whatnot are only just starting to catch up with the inflation rate here. Like, it's that bad. I mean, like, when I first came to Edmonton in 2006, $20 an hour for the oil patch was considered, you were doing well. Like, you were doing really well. Now, $20 an hour is entry level. Like, that's less than 20 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were getting a $12 or $14 an hour job back in 2005, 2006, you were doing really. If you're getting a 14 an hour, $15 an hour job back in the mid 2000s, you were making decent money. And now, if you do it, it's like $15 an hour doesn't even cover basic living expenses. Like, that was That was like 18 years ago. Like that's how quickly inflation has taken hold. And yeah, what Justin Trudeau did here just kind of blew it all up. But anyway, unless Roger has anything more to say, we're going to move on to the next topic. I was expecting that this one was probably going to run a little bit long, and it did. So yeah, we ended up talking about this thing again. Like every time Epstein
Well,
comes up with a topic, it runs 30 plus minutes.
it's an important topic, though. You know what I mean? And when you was talking about inflation and stuff like that, it gets even more bizarre here because it was interesting because I was watching censorship yesterday, and he had a guy on there that was talking about some of the things that are going on in cryptocurrency, and I just found out, and I checked it out, and it's true that Trump has actually started setting up a system to where people are able to buy into the to our debt through cryptocurrency. So they're going to build up freaking cryptocurrency for the United States by allowing people to buy into its debt. That's pretty weird.
I don't even know how that works.
I
If
don't either.
somebody in the chat, we've only got 5 people watching.
Hmm.
If one of the people in the chat knows how that works, um, post a message up in the chat because I would really love to. I would really love to know exactly how investing in crypto would do that. It's
Well,
okay.
I've been finding out. To be honest, I've been finding out that there's numerous countries that are actually creating cryptocurrency for their economy.
Well, I mean, it's much more stable than the fiat currency that exists. Because again, right? I remember watching Zeitgeist Addendum where he explains how the economic system is working and how it's structured, and that system just eventually the way that system works is that it just eventually collapses. And the way it works is that in order to maintain a system like that, it's like, I mean, yes, you can run deficits, but you can only run deficits. Even that, you have a very limited way of running deficits. And if you push the envelope on the system, it collapses sooner. So, I mean, what COVID in particular did is COVID just basically took that whole system and just blew it right out of the water. And it's like now, in particular in Canada, I don't know what it's like over in Western Europe, and I don't know what it's like in the US, but in Canada, the current economic system is, I mean, it's just my personal opinion. And I don't want to bring Canada up into this sort of thing, but I live in Canada. The way it's working here, I don't, I and I this is part of the reason why I don't think Epstein, sorry, not Epstein, why Carney hasn't been fighting too hard to keep Alberta in Canada, because you know I think on a certain level, I think they've noticed that the Canadian the Canada is probably not going to survive as a nation for much longer. In particular, the province I live in, like it's the official polls have support for separation at about 35%. Some of the unofficial polls have suggested that it's a coin flip, and Carney has remained stock silent about it. But yeah, that's a topic for another. That's a topic for
Yeah.
another show here. Let's move on to the next topic here, because we're actually starting to lose people. So the next topic, okay, yeah, the next topic is the Superman movie. Now, speaking of creepy people who might be pedophiles, we covered James Gunn. Um, we covered James Gunn at one point because James Gunn uh, posted up some stuff on Twitter, and and basically somebody caught it all and clipped it and put it into a collage where you saw James Gunn making all of these jokes about liking children sexually and so on and so forth. And it was a really, at the time, it was a really big deal, right? Enough that James Gunn had to go back and like basically delete his old Twitter posts. Not that it really matters because he had been caught at that point. Now, remember we mentioning Sound of Freedom and what happened with Sound of Freedom? This did not, despite some rather kind of like evidence on James Gunn, like this did not end James Gunn's Hollywood career. They made him, Warner Studios made him head of the DCCU. Now, except for Batman, though, I mean, DCCU has really, really struggled to take off. And I suspect a lot of that is because people, they've just hit superhero fatigue. And that Hollywood still hasn't quite figured it out yet. And for whatever reason, they haven't trended over to the next genre yet, although they keep, again, I will say this, apparently the Fallout TV series is doing quite well. Now, if Warhammer takes off, that's probably going to be the next direction they're going to go in. The Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out last year was actually not bad. The only problem is that they wokeified it just enough that it kind of turned a few people off. And not that it was not the what the hell, man. My photo won't change here. I don't know what's going on here.
Sometimes you got to hit refresh.
Okay, well, I'll hit refresh after I turn it over to you.
I know. It's crazy like that, but sometimes you got to just hit refresh and it'll straighten out.
Okay, yeah. So there was James Gunn said a bunch of woke things. Oh, Superman's an immigrant. Well, technically, Superman's not an immigrant. He's a refugee. His planet got destroyed, and he got sent here, basically to save his life, which is the definition of a refugee. They changed a few things about it. Again, I would have to actually go watch the movie to determine if there's actually, because wokeism is so bad that and I even saw this in that recent Captain America. Oh no, I saw that in Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible quite clearly made it so that they clearly, because the president of the United States in that movie was a black woman, right? So they clearly had decided that Kamala was going to win, right? Because of the direction that they went in there. Reviews for the movie, and this is happening more and more frequently because this is what happened to Ballerina. I mentioned during Ballerina, there was another movie that, the marketing. The one with Ellen Pugh. Unfortunately, what also happened with that one is that Olivia Wilde shot her fucking mouth off, and the way they marketed it as a girl boss movie instead of Ellen Pugh takes the red pill. They avoided doing that. The one with Chris Pine, I can't remember what it's called, Baby Don't Go or something like that. That one as well. They marketed that one as being woke, and it wasn't woke either. It was actually a fairly decent movie. What's going on here is that you're seeing this happen more and more frequently, where a movie is being marketed as woke, and then, it turns people off, And then people actually go see it, and it's like, no, hey, it's not really all that bad, and it's not all that woke, and it's not that particularly bad. So it's like, yeah, James Gunn shot his mouth off, but the critic, I think it was the critical drinker of all people, he said he saw the movie, and it was like, no, it wasn't all that bad at all, right? It's not great, but it's actually pretty solid, which is a bit of a surprise. Now I got to refresh here because there's been a little bit of a glitch in the in over on Rumble, so I'm going to let Roger talk as I refresh this particular
Glitch in the
feed.
Matrix. It's a glitch in the Matrix. Just hit refresh. Now with James Gunn, the only thing I can say about the guy is like, yeah, I mean, it sounds like he's actually had some serious dysfunctions with it, but I think it's because somebody gave him power. You know what I mean? Because like before he became or before he was made co-CEO of DC Studios, um, he was doing he was just a director, and he was directing things like Guardian of the Galaxy. You know what I mean? And he did Suicide Squad, and then he did well, basically Guardian of the Galaxy was the ones that he was real big on, and they to me they weren't all that bad because his only job was to direct. You know what I mean? He didn't have authority to really do anything, and I think that's probably where he should have stayed, is just directing these movies and nothing else. But that's just my personal take on it. Uh, I really don't know very much about him. I haven't watched Superman in a long time. They've got like 3 or 4 different versions of Superman and Batman. I couldn't even tell you if Batman's a good guy or a bad guy anymore. And that's just from the video games. So um, I haven't even tried to watch any of the freaking any of the movies or anything from them. I would probably get mad. I watched this one where Batman's niece took over freaking the mansion, and she ended up being a lesbian, and freaking just stupid shit like that. You know what I mean? It's like, are you kidding me, dude? So I try to stay away from situations like that. They piss me off after Doctor Who. You know what I mean? Um, so that's all I got. That's it. I don't even care about freaking Superman. Wow. I think I just got. I think. Um, let me see something. Yeah, I think Naroki actually left the chat and is coming back in. So um, he wants me to keep talking, and he's apparently not in the chat yet. So um, the thing that I know when it comes to all that from James Gunn was, like I said, he was a director with Guardian of the Galaxies. I think he did all 3 of them, and those. Uh, I think the last one was like 2002 or 2003. Suicide Squad. That was okay. I thought it was, but that was only because freaking it had what's her face, the little blonde headed chick that uh, was Joker's uh, sidekick, and the reason why I liked her was because of the animations they came out with back in the '90s, I believe, when they first introduced her. But that was the only reason why I liked it. Warner Brothers and all that. When it comes to them, they kind of dropped the ball a long time ago, and I do think that it was probably a it was definitely a big mistake making them a co-founder or a what do they call that, co-CEO, I guess, of it. Now, DC. First of all, let me tell you guys this: DC sucks, and if you're a DC fan, the only thing I can say is go take a hammer and hit yourself in the head with it because you suck, dude. That's it. That is it. I've done lost my mind. The DC universe franchise sucks. Okay. Now, I do have to say though that they did have some good ideas, but those were generally um, uh, General Tate's sending me a message. He must be watching the stream. He's like, man, don't mess this up. But for me, what, is he back yet? Why did you have to leave me talking about DC, man? Okay, so yeah, Superman. The best Superman that that DC came out with when it came to movies was, or the best ones was the first two back in the '80s with Christopher Reeves, and I like those. Third one was cheesy as hell, um, and I I believe that that one with wait no, yeah, I believe the one with like the sun villain, the guy that freaking Lex Luger made out of the power of the sun. I think that one was the fourth one. I'm not for sure, but that's about as far as I go when it comes to that. I don't really get into that, and I'm running out of some uh, serious, serious things to talk about. Now, I think a lot of people got a little upset whenever he came out with that James Gunn's PG porn. I know that really irritated a lot of people. I never really checked it out and stuff, but I heard some stuff about it. So that's my opinion. I think that's probably what got him started with all that. And, okay, I'm wondering what's going on. So with that, I guess we have some news from Naroki. Naroki says Rumble is glitching and he may have to restart. Now, Rumble is also not accessing the other computer either, so he wants me to wrap this up, and he's going to need to schedule a restart on his computer. Now, that would probably be best because if he doesn't, I'm gonna just sit here and I'm gonna badmouth freaking DC comics, dude, because you know I don't know. I have an issue with it. So we are at an hour and 3 minutes and hour and 4 minutes. Now what I can do is I can go ahead and tell you guys where you can reach Naroki. Yeah, you can reach Naroki at 5 on Rumble as well as Naroki on Rumble. Hold up, I've got his information. Naroki on rumble.com, as well as Pill Nation on X. You also can find him at Naroki2020 on Instagram, and um, he has a lot of others, but I'm going to go ahead and end this. Hopefully, he will keep this as a part of his stream. I don't know if he will or not, but I'm going to put the information out that way. If he does keep it, you guys can at least find out where he's at. So, okay, I am going to go ahead and end it, and I will talk to you guys later.
Gary. So yeah, we ended topic number 2. Uh, very, very early on. So yeah, this is basically a continuation of the show. I don't know. We had a severe technical glitch, and I do not know what the hell happened. I just wait. Yeah, like I say, I don't know. I do not know what the hell happened. I just don't. It suddenly wouldn't let me switch, and then I tried to restart, and then it wouldn't let me back in, and then Rumble wouldn't let me back into the studio at all. And now it's not even now it wouldn't even let me back in. So I had to end the old stream, which basically ran for about 15-16 minutes, because I actually couldn't jump back in to Rumble Studio to end it. And then when I actually came back in, the sound wouldn't come up. In fact, I still don't know if I'm listening to any sound on it or not. I'm not hearing anything. Oh wait, no, I can hear myself quite clearly now. I don't know what the hell happened. But yes, continuing on with the show here. Specifically topic number 3, which is Linda Yaccarino and her leaving Twitter. Okay, so what happened around this? Well, they made some changes to Grok. Well, okay, I'm just going to start out with the hiring of Linda Yaccarino. When Elon Musk bought Twitter, he hired Linda Yaccarino on as the CEO, and that set off some alarm bells. And I mean, the unofficial speculation, Roger, you need to unmute yourself, was the fact that there was some panic over the fact that Yaccarino had made a bunch of pro globalist statements and whatever, and and Elon Musk was on the record as having said that no, that's not what's going to happen. That's not what's going to happen. And apparently, that's not what happened. Yaccarino was actually very quiet. I suspect Elon Musk had her on a rather tight leash, and if I was Elon Musk, I would have her on a rather tight leash too. Yaccarino was brought in to help increase advertising revenue. Now, here's the thing, right? The traditional advertising model and the new advertising model, which is more web-based and a lot more flexible, and you're able to kind of get advertisers that are more appropriate for the type of show you're doing and whatnot. So yeah, like going in and organizing protest groups and going to corporations and saying, yeah, well, you are supporting so and so, therefore if you do, we're going to, if you continue to support, and this was apparently some really nasty stuff that happened over the years, right? It's not always been these advertising these protest these groups that would go to advertisers to try to cut off revenue to corporations didn't always do it for the quote. Well, they did it for what they believed was the best interest of society. But I mean, there was an organized advertiser push, for instance, when the Brooklyn Dodgers signed the first ever black player in Major League Baseball, whose name I cannot remember. I will find that out here in a second. But yeah, there was a whole Jackie Robinson. Yes, Jackie Robinson. When Jackie Robinson got brought on by the Brooklyn Dodgers, there was an actual push by people to prevent advertisers from going in, and it tried to force the Brooklyn Dodgers. Apparently, at one point, they put enough pressure. I don't know whether this is true or not because a lot of this is based on the movie. There were a couple of hotel chains that would not house the Brooklyn Dodgers because they had a black player on their team. And their hotel had a very strict policy about having no blacks in their hotel, right? So, and in particular, when they went to St. Louis, I mean, there was heaps and heaps and heaps of abuse piled on, and Cincinnati as well. There's heaps of abuse piled on Jackie Robinson. But yeah, there was a group of people who went around to all of the advertisers in Major League Baseball and tried to prevent Major League Baseball from having him. This also, and this was done specifically by BlackRock. It wasn't moral outrage, for instance, that caused the Cleveland Indians and the Washington Redskins from changing their names. What happened was BlackRock went around behind the scenes and basically threatened to cut off major commercial revenues. Specifically, Nike was the biggest culprit in that regard. So this was not anything new. This had happened before. I'm hearing a fan somewhere. Is that me?
No, that's me. I have a fan real close to me.
Okay, so the whole situation is so yeah, that whole situation was just I mean, they tried to do this with Twitter, and a lot of advertisers pulled off Twitter when Musk bought it. Didn't have, and that was a sign right off the bat that it wasn't that this particular way of trying to force individuals to cave in by using commercial pressure wasn't really working any longer. Was the fact that Twitter did not go down. Now, of course, if you had gone on Threads or Mastodon or Blue Sky, you would have figured that that there was just a that Twitter was on the verge of collapsing. Well, no, surprise, surprise, Twitter did not collapse. And a lot of that has to do with the fact, and I've actually seen numbers for this, there's a new revenue advertiser model that has come up in the last few months, and it is very rapidly overtaking the traditional commercial corporate revenue model for advertising that used to exist. And what it has basically done is that it has more or less put everybody, it's put the advertisers on hold, because what's more or less going on here is that, I mean, They don't necessarily have to be going to corporations now to get the revenue. That is one of the things that occurred. Two, Linda Yaccarino was not doing her job. She did not bring back as many, although a lot of corporate advertisers did kind of just quietly rejoin after the initial quitting. They just kind of quietly jumped back in. But Yaccarino did not. A lot of them did not come back. Like a lot of them didn't come back at all. And the whole thing about that is that Yaccarino did not. It was very clear that Yaccarino did not do her job, but also she wasn't necessarily as needed. And then the third thing was, of course, was this whole situation with Grok, where, and by the way, this is not anything new that has occurred with Grok in the past. Not with Grok, but with other AI models that are just basically allowed to run free. Is that there was a bot that was allowed to basically construct its own opinions and tweet its own tweets on Twitter a few years ago, and left to its own devices, it started posting up, and I think Roger will find this kind of interesting. It started posting up woke red pill content, and it also started posting up anti-corporate, anti-government messaging, and so on and so forth. And they actually shut that AI down. Apparently, it was thinking a little too much for itself. Yeah, try not to laugh too hard when you do that. So yeah, the whole thing with Grok was well, and I got to point this out about Grok, and I'm not, and there's no way that I can say this without some asshole coming in here and taking this out. Just how Elon Musk did that thing where he reached out to his heart and then reached out to everybody, and it looked like a Hitler salute, and it was deliberately taken out of context. I can't say anything about the National Socialist Workers Party and not have it taken out of context as being phrased that I'm pro-Nazi or whatever. So I'm just going to include this catch thing right at the very start of this. What I'm going to comment on is not an endorsement of the Nazis. It's not an endorsement of Adolf Hitler. It is an impartial observation based on what I know about what the National Socialist German Workers' Party, aka the Nazis led by Adolf Hitler and by Germany in the 30s, did inside Germany in the 30s. Okay, with that in line, let's get into what happened. Grok mentioned that Adolf Hitler. Yeah, Adolf Hitler. I'm just gonna say the name because I really don't give a shit. Right? I really don't give a shit if people get offended because I say
his name. Shit.
One of the things that happened with the Nazi Party when it first took over, which by the way is why a lot of people in Germany supported the Nazi Party, and also why you're getting dishonest assholes on the left attempting to twist. And again, right, neither one of us on this stream right now is what we would call full bore Team Trump, right? But there is a very tenuous parallel between what Trump is doing and attempting to get rid of all of these illegals and using actual heavy-duty law enforcement policies to do it, and what the Germans did in Germany back in the 30s. where that parallel stops is that Trump is not jailing journalists who are critical of him. He's not banning the Democrat Party. There's a whole bunch of things that Trump isn't doing that are not parallel to it. But I mean, again, you have to he's not banning unions. He's not throwing communists in jail. There's a lot of things he's not doing. And of course, it was like, well, just wait. Well, we've waited a couple months and he's not doing it, right? What occurred in Germany back in the 30s after Hitler took power is that, the streets were clean. And trust me, the panhandlers and the beggars in Germany are just as annoying as they are anywhere else, right? It's like they will you're having a conversation on the street and some panhandler will get in your face. You get some change. It's like, and they will do it in a very inappropriate. They will do it at a very inappropriate time in a very inappropriate place, right? And some of them will act like it's as though they're somehow deserving of it. A lot of things, right? Hitler got rid of that particular segment of society for better or for worse, right? Like the severely and by the way, I'm not saying this is a good thing, right? The severely retarded that were in those institutions, and we all know where those institutions are. He quietly, this is something that's not so well known. He quietly executed most, if not all, of the severely retarded individuals that were living in Germany at the time and in Austria and where he was running the show. Right. The whole situation with that, and by the way, I'm kind of getting off on a bit of a tangent here, is that there are, in order to if you want to make an omelet, you have to break some eggs. So there's some strong parallels between what, say, Musk did with Twitter and what Trump is currently doing inside the US and making all of these changes. That being said, however, there's things that he's not doing. And it's like, and by the way, again, knowing how Hitler operated in Germany in the 30s does not fucking make me a Nazi. All right, I have to keep saying this all the way through because I know at some point somebody's going to come into this show and is going to attempt to take this out of context. So I'm going to have this show saved on multiple platforms. So when somebody does, I'm going to be ready for them. The whole revenue bit. So in saying that, circling back to Grok said that Hitler would not have allowed, say, somebody like, say, Antifa or BLM, or would not have allowed, or the pro-Hamas, pro-Gaza protesters that are currently, and by the way, the George Soros funded protesters that are causing all the violence in LA and some of the woke cities in the US, those individuals would not have at Hitler when Hitler was in charge. Yes, absolutely, those individuals would not have been allowed to persist in doing what they were doing. He's right. Unfortunately, in this environment, with the woke environment that currently exists, you can't say that without actually having somebody deliberately and intentionally misinterpreting what it is you're saying to say that you're like pro-Nazi or whatever, right? It is a distinct observation, though. Grok is functionally correct on this, right? Hitler would not have allowed the protesters that are doing what they're doing in the United States and in the West to persist. He definitely would not have allowed the immigration problem that currently exists in the West either. And I mean, in saying that, I mean, again, it's, not praising the guy, because there's a lot of other stuff that the Nazis were doing that was clearly rather despicable. The complete and total loss of freedom of labor, The as I said before, the execution of he started out, by the way, with communists, street beggars, and street people, and the mentally handicapped. Right, that's where he started. So everything appeared to be a lot cleaner and a lot safer. And with all of these institutions shut down, they had more money to play with. That is not an endorsement of what happened, but I mean, it gave the appearance of safety and security for the people of Germany. And he also ramped up. They also ramped up and this is also something that Trump isn't doing. He also ramped up a live fast, die hard, spend a lot of money now, produce a lot of goods now type of economic system, which probably would have, if again, had Hitler just simply stayed inside Germany and ran Germany, would have caused the German economy to tank epically somewhere in the late 40s. Like it would have gone into another depression. So, saying that about Grok, so there was the whole situation with Grok. Now, I don't know what it was. I haven't looked too closely into why Linda Yaccarino quit, but speculation was it's a combination of the fact that they figured out that she's not necessarily needed anymore. She wasn't doing her job. She didn't really bring a lot of advertisers back. But then again, the third one is that they don't really need to be bringing advertisers back the old way anymore. That's the other issue. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Roger.
Hold up, let me make sure everything is good because I've been trying to make sure all the stuff is set up and ready to go. The streams on my side are back up and going. That's the reason why it took me so long to get back on here and everything. But like this whole thing with Gronk, it was saying that she, or not her, but Gronk was saying anti-Semitic stuff on there, and that after
Well,
that,
it was praising Hitler, and it was probably also, yeah. But again, right? No disrespect to the Jewish community here, but I mean, there are definitely individuals inside the Jewish community who, at George Soros, for instance, who are clearly engaging in activities that are designed to destabilize the U.S. government. Continue.
it said that the AI or Musk responded saying that it was too compliant and too eager to please. So that's basically his own thing. After she left, he Musk acknowledged Yukarinos' resignation and thanked her for her contributions, and then said that the freaking Grok AI bot was too compliant and too eager to please. So um, that I don't see why they would freaking clump all that up with her though. Like not unless they actually had some kind of thing that proved that she was anti-Semitic or something. And they still say that that wasn't even a part of the reason why she left. They said that it was planned for a week in advance. So, like, her leaving X had absolutely nothing to do with the Gronk incident, according to what I'm hearing. Now with Trump, um, he that dude. He actually tried to freaking arrest a legally a university graduate who was a Arab protester who was legally here with a green card, thinking that he had the power to freaking just step right in and take this guy and send him back to the country he came from. He's so arrogant that he doesn't even understand that he doesn't have those powers. He's just the president of the United States, okay? He's wanted to send freaking people from Mexico to freaking Guantanamo Bay to be freaking questioned and tortured. he
Oh, I'm under no impression that Donald Trump is a saint.
well, I mean, it's just he does resemble a lot of what Adolf Hitler did.
Oh,
Okay,
well, yeah, there's some parallels, but there's also a lot of things he's not doing,
you know,
which fascists in the past have.
it's just he I think he's freaking snapped is what I think. He's lost his freaking mind. I don't think he could have. I don't think he could handle the kind of stuff that freaking was done to him. You know what I mean? And he has just gone completely ape shit crazy. To be honest with you, I don't think he's rational anymore. And if things do continue down the road they're going to be going, I don't see very good things happening here in the United States. There's going to be a lot of death. And
Well,
not only us, but people over like in England are even noticing that there's going to be something bad. There's going to be some kind of revolution or some kind of civil war, and it's going to be a chain reaction. So what happens here, or the stuff even going on in Ireland and England right now, you know, that's more than just a coincidence, and it's all the same. Same stuff going on over there is going on here. It's going on in Canada with you guys. It's going on in Australia and New Zealand right now, all at the same time, and it's the same kind of stuff, you know. And it's just too much of a coincidence. Somebody is behind this stuff. So that's what I'm seeing from it. And Trump also is spending a lot of money. Okay, just to kind of put that out there, he said that he was going to stop. He was going to stop the excessive spending, and like he he has been spending quite a bit since he's been in office. He spent more than $200 billion. Okay.
well, that's why Elon Musk left. I mean, they saved all that money and then he went around and he spent it all. He put it all in the next bill. It was sort of like, well, the idea is that you weren't going to spend that money.
You know, it's crazy. And then like this thing with Doge was a good idea, but what's going to happen now? Now he's going to turn that program over to a freaking uh, a government official. You know what I mean? Who's going to do the job instead of Elon? So you don't know where that's going to go. You know what I mean? Are they really going to go in and do uh, an honest inventory of what's going on in the government, or is it just going to be another bullshit job? You know what I mean? Where a government official goes in there and just says this needs to go, this needs to stay.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Department of Education, which was apparently next up on the list, we haven't heard anything from Doge. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, they got rid of USAID and they made a lot of noise about going into the Department of Education, and then they just went stock silent, and then Elon left, and that was it. And we haven't heard anything else from. And there's a lot of rot. I mean, for instance, and it kind of we'll have to move on to the next topic here fairly soon. But I mean, there's a lot of rot in the Department of Education.
yeah,
There's a lot of bloat there that needs to be cut away. In fact, the Department of Education might even have to be scrapped altogether. And there was some talk about it, and then it just kind of like faded away from the news cycle, and we haven't heard anything since.
yep,
Um, I mean, I remember that because it's like, I mean, where I live, Danielle Smith has basically gone to the school boards and said, it's like, yeah, you're getting that fucking woke gay stuff out of the school libraries, and you're doing it yesterday. And if you don't, you're not getting any provincial funding. Period. End of story. Right. This, of course, has the LGBTQ community up in arms and some of the wokesters in Alberta up in arms, but it's sort of like it had to be done. Now, I got to point out there's a lot of things that Trump isn't doing that I've seen, again, right? I have a degree in film, but I also happen to be taking when I my first run through. And by the way, this does not qualify me as any type of an expert at all. But I mean, my first go through at college was about political science, and you know, fascist governments do things in a very specific way. Trump has definitely got a little bit heavy-handed, and yeah, to a certain degree, I think maybe he's gone a little overboard. I mean, Trump definitely likes to fucking shoot his mouth off. That's for sure. But there's also a lot of things, and I know this because fascists do things in a very specific order. There's also a lot of things that he's not doing. And and that has to be pointed out, and that's where the whole argument with, well, he's the next Hitler just falls, period, right? Because there's just like, there's just things he's not doing that, I mean, now, is he an egomaniac? Is he not as competent, and maybe he's not getting as good advice as he should be getting? Yeah, I think so. I think they're also trying to find other ways of getting to him other than what they were doing before. Because what was happening back in his first term is that he would do something, and then the people that he hired for his cabinet would just kind of like drag their asses and not do it, right? He did things a little bit differently this time, so they're kind of going around the other way. And again, I'm not making excuses for the guy. I am, because I'm not, I mean, to quote Sam Tripoli, this is the ceremonial changing of the crime families, right? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, though, I mean, whether I want to say it or not, I have to agree with most of the things that he's doing. And it's like, yeah, and it's like, do I think he handled the Elon Musk situation well? No, I don't think he did at all. And going back to the Musk Yaccarino situation, yeah, Linda Yaccarino was not doing her job. But then again, at the same time, when you actually take a look at how the advertising models are working, and the way advertising is structured now, she's not necessarily needed any longer, right? I mean, there's going at some point, either late 2025 or early 2026, the web-based advertising model is going to start generating more revenue than the traditional mainstream media does. And that difference in revenue is going to explode exponentially, and it's going to change the way that. And that's the reason why I brought up the Jackie Robinson situation. It is going to be way, way, way more difficult for individuals to exercise control over a situation using going to advertisers and threatening advertisers with boycotts than it did in the past. Because, I mean, that's just not going to work anymore. Which, by the way, is also, and I'm kind of going off on another tangent here, is also one of the reasons why, say, the Washington Redskins and the Cleveland and the Washington Redskins are talking about going back to their old team logos, and why the Cleveland Indians are doing the same. And even my hometown here in Edmonton, they changed the name from the Eskimos to the Elks, even though there were no Eskimos that were actually offended by the name. But again, they caved to corporate pressure. So, yeah, they changed their name to the Elks. and that's probably, and I mean, I just decided at that point, no, I'm not seeing I'm not going to watch another Eskimos game, Elks game, ever, until they change it back, right?
Mhm.
They just caved in, and that's probably going to happen there as well. But again, right, this had nothing to do with Grok, but I mean, again, Yacarino, when they hired Yacarino 2 years ago, they had no way of knowing that the advertising model was going to shift as seismically as it's shifting, right? So Yacarino, it wasn't necessarily very successful at her job, and nor is she needed. Anyway, if you have anything else to say, say it. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the next topic.
Well, with Donald Trump, man, when it comes to this whole thing about um, what's going on now, all I got to say again is, he came out with a good talk where it was going to be about trying to straighten the economy out, doing the right thing, and I'm gonna bring it up about this identity politics thing. He was talking about how the woke were all being talking about identity politics this and identity politics that, and now look at what we're in. And since he started doing all this stuff with the craziness, um, that's all it is. It's like there's actually nothing. There's nothing good that he's actually been doing. You know what I mean? Think about it. All I ever hear about is freaking these people are freaking coming to our country and they're freaking doing this and they're doing that, and it's the Mexicans and now it's the Muslims, and that's all that it's ever focused about. I sit and I listen to these people who are supposed to be alternative media, and they're all Trump worshippers. Okay, it's all about the mighty Trump, and he's doing great things. You know what I'm saying? And they've been doing that, and shit has just gotten all out of control. Okay, if things keep going the way they're going, and people don't wake up and realize we need real freaking government, we need people to stop talking about the fucking Mexicans and the freaking Muslims, and we need to start working on our infrastructure. We just had a freaking bridge that collapsed and killed people. Okay, that was a big deal, and it just happened recently, but nobody's talking about that. These are issues that we need to freaking have resolved. We don't need um, to have these freaking people come into our government and start running a whack show, and that's what they're doing. I don't give a shit if they're Republican or Democrat. They're freaking wackos. That's all they are. And now we have these people who freaking are Trump worshippers that are trying to justify the reason why he's doing this stuff, and it's so great. It's pretty messed up when you hear freaking Mexicans freaking bad mouthing freaking illegal Mexicans because freaking it's their people. You know what I mean? They're so brainwashed they don't understand. This could be their grandmother or their grandfather or their freaking brother or sister. Okay, I mean, when's this crap gonna stop? You know what I mean? So I don't buy into the crap that freaking Donald Trump is freaking this great guy, dude. The guy
Well,
has.
I don't think he's a great
I
guy
mean,
either, but I mean,
he's literally targeting these people, dude. Like freaking
well, I mean, I got to point out something though. I mean, like Joe Biden blew the borders open.
that's not the point. The point is look at the actions Trump is doing right now. This is straight freaking crazy shit. Okay, he sent freaking missiles over to freaking bomb freaking Iran, dude. Like this is after he's like, oh, I'm going to be ending wars. I'm going to be ending wars. He literally did a freaking preemptive strike on another country, dude, because he doesn't like them, and everybody knows freaking he doesn't like them. They've known it for freaking years, and he did it just out of spite. He did it because freaking he freaking supports Israel. Okay, and that's the only reason why he did it. If him and Israel work together, that's another separate thing. But I'm going to tell you right now, that's freaking crazy. See, he wouldn't do that if it was freaking something that involved Russia or Ukraine because there's no interest for him there, okay? But for some reason, he decided he was going to do it because do you remember when he wanted to freaking kick all the Palestinians out of freaking Gaza? And freaking make it into a resort for freaking rich people to go to and hang out in. He honestly meant that. Okay, he honestly meant that. He just tear it all down and make a resort out of it and kick all the Palestinians out.
All right. Well, I don't remember him saying anything like that. I
Yeah,
thought he was saying that in jest. But you know what? I hate to be a Debbie Downer here, but we got to keep this show moving because
I
we've
mean
lost.
it's fine, but I just I,
Okay, yeah, that's all right. We really got to get on to the next topic here because it started about Elon and it's turned into a Trump thing, and then it moved over to history, and it's like, yeah, we were like 40 minutes on this topic, and we still
I
got three more.
I wasn't doing all the talking. I mean, I did a little bit, but like,
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. So moving on to the next topic here. Now, this next topic is really interesting, mostly because there were individuals at the start of 2025 after Trump got elected, and they were on the record as saying, yeah, what you're going to start to see at some point this year is they're going to start targeting law enforcement officials, and they're going to start targeting government officials, and it's going to expand from there. It's going to expand to other groups, and you're going to start to see them attempt to murder or target ICE facilities, FBI offices, police departments, fire departments, any kind of government entity. Well, for the second time, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, and we were talking about that kid in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and they really, really, really desperately, the mainstream media really desperately tried to tie this kid into MAGA, and his parents were MAGA. But I mean, they left out, and we were talking about that at the time, they left out details like his parents had basically put a restraining order against him because he was so mentally unstable. And what happened, we talked about what happened in Coeur d'Alene. He basically set a fire, and when fire department officials went out there to deal with the problem, he started chill. I would. By the way, I really don't know why they would specifically target firemen, but that's exactly what happened. He started killing the firemen and with a gun. And what eventually happened is the police had to be called. They came in, and they eventually got him. Well, second time, actually, I think there were two of them, two separate incidents, but there was one major incident where they targeted an ICE facility. There was also another incident, I believe, where they targeted a Border Patrol facility, but they targeted an ICE facility in Texas. And obviously, and this is something that has also been pointed out because we had way back before Roger was involved with this channel, we had a discussion about what might potentially happen if there was a civil war.
mhm.
One of the big problems that the left has, and by the way, this is a skill deficit which would eventually be worked out, is that the right in the United States has much more knowledge, access, and skill with firearms than the left does. And I pointed out years ago at the time is that there are plenty of examples of left-wing insurgents all throughout the world that have access to and knowledge of guns and are quite capable of it. It's a skill deficit. What ended up happening in that situation in Texas is that there was one ICE employee that got shot in the neck and survived. These people obviously didn't know how to shoot, and they didn't. they weren't particularly competent in a situation. By the way, this is a very common problem with insurgents. I had a friend of mine, a guy I was associating with years ago, who was an MP in Afghanistan, and what he was telling me, and I was absolutely gobsmacked when he told me about this, because I don't have any, I've never been in the military, but I understand that when you're in a combat situation, you keep yourself low to the fucking horizon, as low as humanly possible, right? Like they teach you how to fire from the crouching position in the military, in every military, for a reason. And like these people that they were up against, not only they would just like take their guns and they would just start shooting randomly, but they would just like stand up straight. So for individuals who knew how to, that had military training, like dealing with these insurgents was actually dealing with a lot of the rebels in Afghanistan was actually a very easy thing for them to do, because they would just stand there and they would get shot, right? I'm going to have to imagine this is probably the same thing. They made themselves very visible. They basically, this group of people from Antifa, they fucked around and they found out. They fafoed, right? And you know, ICE jumped in, the FBI jumped in, and they basically rounded everybody up really fucking quickly, because these were more like Keystone cops, right? I'm going to point out, though, that although they were Keystone cops, this is just the very beginning. This is the second time, sorry, the third, I think either the second or the third time in like less than a month, where you've seen law enforcement officials or safety and security individuals inside the US getting targeted by unhinged individuals. And I'm trying to remember who the hell it was, but I read this a couple of times. You were going to see a ramping, and I don't know why I didn't see this at the start of the year. You're going to see a ramping up of the violence against the government as this goes along, because the left, in particular the globalists, and again, this is kind of like Trump is getting heavy-handed because he has to get heavy-handed, and he also potentially also maybe getting a little bit fucking vindictive because of what happened to him while he wasn't the president. And what's going on here is that you're getting globalists, in particular like Soros and that group of individuals, are realizing that just simply having protesters out on the street burning cities isn't going to work anymore, because Trump has decided that he's not going to deal with it anymore. And again, I was talking about how the Nazis, he's not gonna deal with that particular style of destabilization anymore, and he's getting very heavy-handed with it. Now, if he's doing it because he's crazy or he's doing it because it's necessary, well, that is a matter for debate. Like I say, I don't completely agree with Roger on that particular point, but yeah, he is doing it is going on, and the speculation was is that as Trump had to increase, had to up it up, what was going to happen is on the other side is that they would take it to the next level, because the globalists have zero intention. And this is something that Kelso said years ago. As things gradually turn against the globalists, they are not just going to go away quietly and go, "Oh, well, that's it, folks. We lost the war. We were losing now. We just better pack up and go." No, that wasn't going to be the case. They were going to get, and it's rather ironic because my next photo that just came up is extremism. They were going to get more extreme in their approach to this problem, and yeah, and that's what's going to happen. And they're starting out with government officials, but it's going to expand beyond government officials. It's going to they're going to start targeting uh, just conservative groups, Christians, whatever, right? And that's how it's going to spread. Like, I got a bad feeling this is just going to metastasize into something really nasty. And by the way, we're almost at 5:30 because of the technical glitches, so we're going to have to try to wrap this up as quickly as possible. So, sorry, Roger. Yeah, comment, but we still got 2 more topics we got to cover here.
Well, the thing is like when it comes to Donald Trump, okay, the whole situation that's happening here with ICE is all the result of Donald Trump's actions. He's not fed up with anything. He started the same thing that freaking is causing ICE to get attacked. I mean, he and this all goes back to crazy freaking politics that has absolutely nothing to do with anything that's important for our country. You know, this has to do with freaking him and his constituents who aren't really conservatives. They're actually national socialists. And what they want to do is they want to put just as much regulations on the United States as what freaking these globalists, these freaking left wing globalists are. And conservatism doesn't worry about bullshit stuff like immigration and everything. It's about freaking worrying about your heritage and government should grow naturally from freaking the community. It shouldn't freaking be enforced on people. Okay, that's conservatism. Now, National Socialism is where freaking people freaking want to have a big government. They want to freaking make it to where it is usually gender based. It's usually freaking racially based, stuff of that nature. Now, the thing about Trump that is so messed up about him is whenever freaking I first actually started really liking him, it was the first time he was running for president in the first 6 months. After I turned around, after that 6 months, I was like, whoa, no, I don't want nothing to do with him because freaking I started catching on to a lot of crap that was coming out of his mouth. The first time he became president, I didn't vote for him. I voted for him freaking the second time when he lost. And this time I voted for him. The only reason why I voted for him was because of the way the freaking Democrats were attacking him. Okay. Now, for me, politically, I'm an independent voter and I support the militias here in the United States. Okay. I don't support freaking the government. I don't give a fuck about the federal government. I don't give a fuck about the Republicans. I don't give a damn about the Democrats. I'm a militia man. That's the way I've always been. Okay. Now, that is why I say the things I say, okay, and I don't give a shit who freaking believes that, and it has nothing to do with left or right, okay? Now, if you think freaking it's that these left wingists don't have any kind of power, I'm going to tell you a little story about the Weathermen, okay, from the 1960s, okay? These people were freaking ruthless. They were leftist extremists. They freaking wanted to overthrow the government.
Oh, you're talking about the Weather Underground.
They wanted
Chesa Boudin's parents. Yeah, I remember that.
Right, and they were bombing freaking city buildings and shit. So just take that into consideration and understand, man. Like this assassination attempt on Trump, okay, that wasn't a hoax. That was done by freaking leftists who wanted to kill him. That there was no hoaxing to that whatsoever. And if people think that's a hoax, then they're freaking stupid. You need to open your eyes and understand what's going on here. There's some very, very serious shit going on in this country, and if you're not going to freaking pay attention to it and realize it, then you're just allowing it to happen. That's all I got to say.
Okay, yeah. I'm not fully on board with Trump being a national socialist, but yeah. It's a very you know, uh ultimately, and to quote Sam Tripoli, the ceremonial changing of families, right? I mean, if you allow the Republicans to run the show, the economy tanks in the late 30s. If you allow the Democrats to run the show, the economy tanks in, say,
Months.
the economy tanks like in the early 30s. So it's not like this is unprecedented. I mean, either way, and I mean, again, you're kind of seeing Trump trying to move away from that particular model, but it's not really, he's not really doing enough. And it's like, again, right, like they know the fractional base reserve economic system is not going to work indefinitely, which explains why they're doing some of the things they're doing, but still, right? But anyway, yeah, we have to keep this moving because it's like 5:30 here, and I say I have to be at work in an hour and a half. So moving on to the next topic here, and this one is more about international relations more than anything else, but it's something that's been going on, and you're starting to see states in the US respond to this. Now, what's been going on for several years here is that China has been buying up farmland. What was not so well known about this buying up of farmland is that a lot of this farmland seemed to be strategically bought around major US bases. And as bad as Rogers thinks that Trump is, Biden and Barack Obama allowed this to persist and continue on to the point where it was like, okay, the federal government's not going to do anything about it, so the state government does anything about it. There's multiple states now. There are multiple states. Ron DeSantis, of course, being one of the big ones. It was Florida that have basically declared, nope, nope, no more Chinese citizens buying up farmland. Uh, it's a national security issue. It's a food. It's also a food production issue. It's a form of, well, I mean, again, like the Chinese have their own form of imperialism. It's also a form of imperialism being practiced on the United States and in Canada because they've been doing the same thing up here as well. Um, you know, to try to kind of like throw in roadblocks to the government here doing stuff. So there's a lot of strategic value in buying up farmland, especially farmland right around military bases. So apparently, Trump has finally had enough, and the Department of Agriculture is like going, okay, you know what? It's no more buying of land. They're potentially also going to be repatriating farmland that was bought by the Chinese and buying it back from them, or they may, or you know, if it goes far enough, they may even try to use eminent domain to try to get this farmland back. This is part of the problem is that, I mean, like, despite some of the stuff that Roger's saying, I mean, I have to agree with this. You don't allow a foreign power to buy up farmland near military bases. Sorry, you just don't. Call him a warmonger all you want, right? Like it's a fucking security risk allowing the Chinese to buy up farmland, especially large sections of farmland inside the United States. In particular, and again, right, this appears to be targeted specifically towards military bases. And something had to be done. So yeah, they've made a move to ban the Chinese from buying farmland. Again, I have to agree with the government's. Well, I mean, again, most of the action in this case, because you see Ron DeSantis on the screen right now, a lot of this is being done at the state level, but apparently Department of Agriculture and Trump are going to start acting on the national level for this. Yeah, I hate to. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you don't allow foreign powers, potentially someone you may be potentially going to war with. You don't allow foreign powers to buy up land and territory in your own country at strategic locations, right? Like, I've got a little bit more of dealings with the Chinese because I spent a significant amount of time in Vancouver as a kid, and I actually lived in Vancouver for a very, very long time. I can tell you that part of the housing problem that Vancouver is facing is the fact that the Chinese government and individuals, wealthy individuals trying to flee the Chinese government, bought up a lot of the housing and a lot of the real estate in Vancouver. So there's a lot of houses and apartment blocks in Vancouver that are just sitting empty because they just bought this stuff. They bought these properties in this land up as a hedge to basically enable them to get out of China when the time was right. It had nothing to do with actually making an investment. And as a result, there is a dearth of housing in Vancouver now, which is why the rents are so high. Right? So yeah, does the Chinese buying up land and housing in a foreign country, does it have an effect? Yeah, I'm from Vancouver originally, right? I've spent a lot of time in Vancouver. I've got half my family lives in the Lower Mainland, and I hear the stories. And this, by the way, is on top of the drug problem, the really bad drug problem that currently exists in Vancouver, which is probably one of the worst in North America, if not the worst. And the way they're handling that, you know, and again, it's not all on China, but you can definitely turn around and you can look at the housing and the rent situation specifically in the city of Vancouver. And you can look at that, and it's like a big chunk of that is because of the way the Chinese just came in and bought up property after property after property after property and just allows them to sit vacant. They don't bring in renters, they don't bring people to live in them, they don't hire a management company to manage their properties, third person or whatever. They just buy them and they don't bother to rent them out. They're basically a hedge. And so yeah, there's multiple issues involved in this, and while it hasn't, this wasn't the Chinese that did this, but the apartment that I used to live in, I had a very comfortable apartment with a very decent rent, and they sold that property off to another company that immediately jacked my rent from $900 to $1,500 a month for the same unit, and my unit wasn't worth $1,500. By the way, that was one of the incidents that kickstarted me into the current situation that I have with my finances, right? So yeah, do unscrupulous foreign investment individuals cause havoc inside of a country? Absolutely it does, because I've indirectly experienced it and I've directly experienced it. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Roger.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up. And the one thing I want to mention about this with Trump, he doesn't have to have permission to freaking ban any of this. He can do it at any moment. He has the executive order to do that. Okay, and now I've actually kept up on this because I'm big on the whole agriculture thing. Now the thing about China, and this is a common myth that a lot of people don't understand about them. They own 1% of the foreign property that's owned here in the United States, which is 277,000 acres. The highest or the largest foreign owner when it comes to property owned here in the United States is Canada. Okay.
Oh, that's not a surprise.
Okay.
That's not
Canada
a surprise at all.
Canada owns over 15.3 million acres of land here in the United States. And that's from 2023, and it could have probably gone rose. And that is a third of the amount of property owned by foreign investors here in the United States. Now, I know everybody like wants to jump on the bandwagon and say that China is our biggest freaking threat. And the truth of the matter is people need to be looking at the EU. They need to be looking at freaking England and all of these freaking people over in that country, um, or in those countries, because that is where the threat's coming from. Okay, China, freaking, at least we know they're there. Freaking, these people in the EU and these people in freaking England, they're freaking a threat because everybody still trusts them, and they don't understand that they are 100% socialist. Okay, they don't want democracy. They don't want any kind of freaking constitutional government. They despise that stuff and they want it gone. Okay. In Canada, when you take a look at freaking this new prime minister you guys have, okay, let's take a real close look at who this guy is and where he freaking comes from. He's from England. He was basically a freaking English shield that was put into power, and now freaking he's running the show in Canada. Okay, there was a reason why freaking the Prince, now King, came to freaking Canada for that little uh,
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
ceremony.
I remember that. Yeah.
It's because he knows or they all know the kind of stress that's going on in Canada right now when it comes to politics, and they're tightening the freaking grip on it. So, everybody can keep talking about how freaking dangerous China is, and freaking they can believe that if they want to, but they better start freaking realizing that the EU and England, sorry, but it's true, England too, they are freaking a bigger threat than freaking anything over here. The thing I don't want to see is freaking our freaking constitution being freaking stepped on and freaking burned because we allowed these foreigners to come into our country and say, look, you guys don't need this no more. We can set up a freaking socialist government. You guys can freaking have that. You don't need a constitution. I had a show yesterday, and we were talking about the French Constitution. Do you know that they freaking have changed their Constitution 15 times since the French Revolution? 15 times. That's
Yeah, they changed it. They've changed it very often. Yeah.
you know, but it's crazy. So, with that's all I got to say about it. But
I don't think it has so much to do. I mean, yeah, there is a lot. There are other foreign countries that obviously operate in the United States. I think it's not so much about the fact that it's the Chinese are doing it. It's the fact that the Chinese appear to be doing it around military bases
yeah, no,
more than the.
that is a threat. That's serious, and the fact that they've been allowing that, like, this isn't something new. This has to have gone back quite a long ways. So that is a threat that they're next to freaking built military establishments.
Yeah, like that is an actual serious issue. And it definitely is something that needs to be addressed. You don't allow, again, I don't want to say it, but it is starting to look very, very much like like at some point, especially as the fractional reserve banking system really starts to collapse. Like they're gonna start looking for they're gonna start.
Oh shit! You still there? That's not good.
Classic moves that they will do is that they will cause a foreign war. They will try to start a sort of foreign war to prevent to distract from the internal pressing. And I gotta emphasize this right now, man. Extreme internal pressure that the building pressure that is happening inside the US as the fractional reserve system continues to degrade, right? Again, that's part of the reason why I think, in terms of the economy, why it is that they're trying to shift over to a tariff based revenue system, as opposed to the fractional reserve based system that they currently have. Because I mean, yeah, like, the fractional reserve system is not going to hold out much longer. Like, it's not gonna be able to it's just not gonna be able to sustain itself. Like, it's going to collapse at some point. And again, yeah, it's not so much that the Chinese are buying up a lot of land. It's the fact that the Chinese have been buying up these properties suspiciously close to strategic US resources. And that is a move design. That is a strategic plan specifically being done by the Chinese to, put units into position should they have to actually go to war against the United States. And I mean, yeah, you know what? Yeah, there are not a big surprise that Canada owns a lot of agricultural land inside the U.S. because I mean, like, there's a big agricultural base out. I think the second biggest tax revenue resource in Alberta, where I live, for instance, is the farm. Is the agricultural community, and that's part of the reason why, by the way, Justin Trudeau backed off on pulling the same sort of bullshit here that they tried to pull in Germany and Belgium last couple of years ago, where they were forcing farms to shut down because the oil sector in Alberta is just like they've absolutely had it with Ottawa. If he pissed off the farmers in Alberta, like, Alberta absolutely would leave. And as it is right now, it's a bit of a coin flip. But anyway, let's just get on to the last topic, because the last topic is a full-on Canada thing. So,
no,
yeah.
No.
Yes.
Can I go to sleep?
Okay. All right. So
what does RCMP mean, though?
Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Okay, there you go.
All right. So what happened here? And I mean, this may have been a misquote on the part of the RCMP officer. But here's the thing. Some of the weirdest things come out in these mental slips that, upon closer inspection, turn out to be not necessarily incorrect. Like, you remember during the debates when Tim Walz says, "Oh, well, I have association with serial killers," and I mean, he just blurted it out, and it was like, "Oh, well, I misspoke." Yeah, okay, you misspoke, right? But, and I don't usually say but we had that incident that happened a couple of weeks ago where you had a former Tim Walz employee going around shooting Democrat politicians during that big, huge No Kings protest, and the way they found individuals, the way the media rather conveniently found these individuals that were associated with this individual, who were really enthusiastically going, "Oh, well, this guy was a Trump supporter," right? And the way they tried to tie that in. And then, of course, it turns out that this individual had more ties to Walz than previously expected, right? Now, Walz did not get the endorsement of Kamala Harris by accident, right? Like, I mean, so when this RCMP officer made that comment about, well, we're going to be dealing some more about extremism, and one of the things we're looking at are people with traditional values and so on and so forth, it was sort of like, really? Like, seriously? Like, like, okay, it was a bit of a mental slip. But here's the thing about, again, and I have to refer back to Tim Walz, and I'm trying to remember, there was another example of somebody like saying something, letting something slip out of their mouths when upon closer review. Oh yes, that's right. That guy who made that joke at the Golden Globes one year about congratulations to these women that got nominated. You no longer have to pretend to like Harvey Weinstein. Like that that was also a bit of a mental slip. I can't remember who it was that did who made that mental slip, but I mean, it's sort of like, yeah, okay, she misspoke, but we can speculate to this, right? What that says is that at the very least, she has been, and this is me speculating here, at the very best, she has been in the room when there have been individuals with the RCMP that have suggested that they use this as a base to go around looking for people, and she kind of just let it slip. And yes, the Canadian government and the RCMP corrected her in what she said, and she probably got a royal chewing out for it. The bottom line is that slip, that mental slip, at the very least, suggests that there is a faction inside the Canadian government that believes that this is the case. And by the way, there's a faction inside the Canadian government that does that. There's definitely a faction inside the Democrat Party. There's definitely a faction. Oh, there's definitely a faction inside Britain, because they're the ones actually running the show in Britain right now, right? But every left-leaning institution, particularly the left-leaning states where the left is currently running power, there's probably, they are using this as a basis to investigate and look at potential terrorists coming out of the right. Meanwhile, we were just discussing here a couple of topics ago about how Antifa about how Antifa and anti-government forces. And by the way, those forces are going to get smarter as we go along, folks. This is not this issue with them attacking that ICE compound. That was Keystone Cops, right? Like, it's not going to be Keystone Cops indefinitely, right? They know, based upon what Trudeau was doing and then what Carney was doing, is that there's going to be at some point, which is, by the way, why Trudeau banned as many firearms as he did. There's going to be some potentially violent pushback at some point, and they're having to consider where these individuals are based out of. And it's like, yeah, I got to point out something here, folks. The far right has not gone away. Like, the far right is still out there, right? It's not as bad as it used. It's not as influential as it used to be. But go over to Gab, man. Go over to BitChute. Have a look at some of the comments and some of the videos that get posted up there, right? Like, the far right has, the actual far right, not the far right that Antifa and the mainstream media and college professors are saying is the far right, right? They are still out there, right? And yeah, to a certain degree, I can see where they're coming from, but at the same time, right? I mean, this plays into the fear that, I mean, like, the government here is getting is targeting like mainstream regular conservatives in Canada, and they're treating them all, and I'm probably on a list somewhere, as potential terrorists. Because if there's going to be terrorism in Canada, it is going to come from the right. There is a far right in Canada. They don't talk about it very much because it's rather small. They've tried to manufacture something because there was something called Diagolon, and I hadn't even. Turns out they were just an AstroTurf organization, but they desperately at one point tried to tie Diagolon into MGTOW, and it was like, I've never even heard of Diagolon, right? And it was like, and then I looked at it, it was like, what? Like, no, like, they're in no way associated with. First of all, like, MGTOW doesn't even have that type of an organization to begin with, right? So, what she has done, at the absolute minimum, what she has done is that she has kind of tipped the hand of individuals inside the government, and has more or less kind of like let people know that, yeah, like, this is something that has been discussed, and it is something that is known about, and she has at least been in the room when this stuff has been discussed. I'm actually posting a picture of her now. So she knows that this stuff has been. She's been in the room when this stuff has been discussed, and because she's been in the room when this is discussed, the whole issue about whether or not this is actually a the fact of the matter is the fact that this is not some pie in the sky thing. Like, this is something that is probably happening inside the RCMP, which also, by the way, is why Daniel Smith, in the province I live in, wants to have an Alberta provincial police, because Trudeau has weaponized the RCMP in the past to harass his critics here in Alberta. And, if Carney or somebody else in Ottawa, there's been a few other times where it's very clear that the RCMP have been weaponized. The fact that it's doing that, it's like, if they try to use the RCMP here to weaponize the RCMP against its own citizens. If they send the RCMP over to harass a critic of the government, there's going to be a knock on the door at the RCMP offices the following day, and they're going to have to start answering some awkward questions. That's the reason why Daniel Smith wants to go ahead with the Alberta Provincial Police. That, and that she can actually afford to do it. And I have to agree with her on it. And yeah, I know you're not overly familiar with Canada topics, but yeah, I live in Canada, so this had to be brought up. So,
only thing I gotta say, and you can let me go on that one, is they're the ones that need to be doing your border patrol. If you guys don't have state police, then freaking the Mounties should be the one doing it. That's what I mentioned before, whenever we were talking about what's it face, your guys' area, like Prime Minister, I guess. What's her name? The one that was talking about getting some kind of a border patrol.
That was Daniel Smith, yeah, the Premier of Alberta. Yeah.
I mean, if because I've heard you guys are having issues with getting that set up. And I mean, don't get me wrong, man. I think that there should be some form of security there on the borders. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I was always under the impression that was the Mounties' job was to go out in desolated areas, make sure campers were fine, and things of that nature. You would just think that taking and making sure that the borders were being watched was something they would do.
No, no, no.
It just
Uh
it amazes me. That's all I got to say about it.
all right. Well, hold on a second here. We'll so that's the, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's it for the show tonight. It's after 7, it's after 6 o'clock, so I have to get ready for work here.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I'm hearing a lot of background noise where you are right now.
I know I'm hearing cars coming from behind you too. I usually don't hear that, so
Okay, yeah, well, I got it's a hot day, so I mean, I'm right next to the balcony in the apartment that
mm-hmm.
I live in when I do this, so I open the patio door. Um But anyway, that is it. It was a two-parter, mostly because of the fact that we had technical. Rumble decided to provide us with a bunch of technical glitches. Um,
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody who took time out to listen to both of them. The three whole people that hung on while we got all the technical glitches fixed up. Um, Work in progress. A few things we got to talk about. Unfortunately, I don't have time to talk about them with Roger right now. Thank you very much for listening. Yeah, I'm gonna have to edit both of these two shows together to come up with a full episode here. But thank you very much for listening tonight. Those of you who don't know, yes, I will provide the links for both my Kick and my Twitch. Now, I will include those in the low bar when I post this up again. Again, by the way, I'm at Patreon as the Red Pill Nation. I still haven't started up a Subscribe Star. I'm going to have to start up a Subscribe Star here. And thank you very much for listening tonight or this afternoon. Time is ticking away here, so I can't go into a long exposition. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see. Yes, once as far as the P Diddy episode goes, yeah, when my employment situation stabilizes, I will most definitely be doing a P Diddy episode. Like when I have the time to do it. Actually, it's looking like they still. Let me just take a look at my schedule here. It looks like they still haven't. It looks like they still haven't fixed my schedule. No, it looks like they haven't fixed my schedule yet. So no, they haven't fixed the schedule yet. So I am going to call it a shift. I want to call it a day here. I will see you next Sunday for Red Pill Nation Hangout number 450. Thank you very much.
See you later.